Guys, I'm going to do a demo here on how to build a precinct in Giraffe with some statistics. And I'm just going to use this Blackwattle Bay precinct here in Sydney. So this is the current precinct design. I'm going to take a screenshot of it. I'm going to come to Giraffe and let's create a new project. So Giraffe, if you're in your space, you can click that plus button and a template to do the project, and then we're going to draw the boundary. So I'm just going to do something like this. This will be changed later. All the boundary in Giraffe does is it locates the project in space, and it also drives calculations like FSR. All right, and now the image that I am about to upload could be anything. It could be, say, a sketch from your director. It could be some research. It could be an existing plan. It could be any number of things. So don't kind of get too caught up in what I'm actually using, but just imagine it as a reference. So I'm going to do a new upload. I'll choose the file. So it's this one, large, and I'll just say BW Bay, save. And we'll use this file. There we go. Okay, so now a little bit annoying in that we need to geolocate this bad boy. So let's do that. So this rectangle here is this rectangle over here. And I just want to lower the opacity of default here so I can see through. Okay, so you can now see that's there. So now you can start to see the alignment of the actual foreshore and those two bridges. Let me just crank that opacity up ever so slightly and do something like this. Now at this point, depending where you are up to in a project life cycle, you may sweat this or you may not. Frequently you may have a geolocated, like a shape file, which would represent a survey or something like that. So that could be an asset, and if you have one of those, obviously those are inherently geolocated, so you don't have to do this kind of stuff. But it's just tremendously useful just being able to put anything up. All right, so there's default, and I'll say that base map, or I'll say this reference scheme. So let's say we've been tasked with doing a new scheme, reference scheme. Okay, and I'm going to lock it, and I'm going to make it wider, and I'm just going to turn off our labels and everything, especially those transit labels and even the map labels. And I'm actually going to turn down these buildings just for now. And there we go. And now I can't lock it because it's the active one, so I'll add a new drawing layer, which we're going to draw on, and now I will lock it, and then that's going to stop highlighting, which is helpful. Okay, so now we could start transposing this thing into 3D kind of immediately. So why don't I turn off 3D buildings entirely? Oh, and these are the landmark buildings. They've actually modeled this, the existing Sydney Fish Market, as a landmark building. I'm going to turn that off. Turn those off. Okay, and so now this reference scheme, and let's say ref model. All right, now I'm just going to use my rectangle tool and do this and this, and I'm going to start applying usage. I'm going to apply retail, one level, and I'm going to round the corners because these are corner rounded. And some tool that we're missing, which I would really like, would be the control of the individual control of the radii, which we don't have as of now. So what you do is you hack it by putting an extra polygon there, and then that single radius changes. Then that's on top of that, put some residential. I'm using my hotkeys E and D to change the stack order. And in real life, I'd probably have an elevation or a 3D diagram over here that would show me what was what. But in this, just for speed, what I'm going to do is not have that. So I'm just going to kind of not make up the scheme, but not sweat the number of levels. Do this, change it to Resi, and pop it up like this. And now we can copy that, and we can copy this, and we can stretch it out like this, and then slice it like that, and delete that. All right, so there is this thing. Now we can round these corners and give it that 5 meter radius. Something like that. And notice with Giraffe, you can do like nice overhangs and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be straight up. Now, if I just turn this down and hit T, so I go to top view, you can see there's actually, if I go right down, there's actually towers on top of these. Some of them are quite small. So that's a 18 by 25 meter tower, right? Resi, and let's add that corner radius. 5. And pop this back on. Okay, and we just need to get that stack order done. All right. So let's just copy that boy again. Just turn him on ever so slightly. Okay, so there'll be one over there. And there'll be one over here that's getting chopped similarly to that friend of the show. Okay, so we can slide this back. And if you want, there's always numeric, like I can do 12, I can do exact inputs if that is something that I want. And Shift D is a measurement tool. Now I guess let's just play with those heights so that they look nice. These are a bit blocky for me. I guess the key thing here is these leaves, avenues. And so I'll just use my row of trees, do something like this. Now that looks great. Well, we can always obviously adjust this, like we could say every sort of 8 meters, and then we'll scale these trees down. So I'll add a scale factor and sort of say 0.8, and then they're sort of closer to the size. Let's just, whilst we're present, just do all of these trees. And for anyone who's spent time in Illustrator, dragging copies of trees, this is fun doing it like this. I'll do this row of trees here too, something like this. And it looks like it's something like that. And this, and this. And remembering in a scheme like this, you can see the buildings are white and the public space is rendered, and that's because the public space is the most important aspect of this kind of a scheme. Cool. I'm putting retail everywhere at ground level, partly because of some renders I've seen and this shop icon. And you can see Giraffe, in some ways it's a crude tool. Do we get this curve, sort of have to do it kind of manually, but it is very, very quick. And because we know all of this is going to change, and we're going to be negotiating these heights and this wind and this public space, it's not that important. I got to say, I do like these. You see, even the subtlety of like flaring this corner out like that. Like it's sort of, this is a curve, and then it flares out and then comes around. It's very nice. You can see that curve over there. Something like this. And for a nice curve like that, I may use the corner radius. And then I think it's sort of like a 12 meter. Okay, no, that's too big. Maybe a 6 meter radius. And then I'll chop those radii off over here. Cool. And I guess this appears to be something like this, where there is a like a through-side link, something that the people walk through. Notice we're calculating the retail and everything as we go here. So nice thing about Giraffe is it just happens. So you're just sort of drawing away, thinking about the urban principles or the graphical principles or rounding the corners or whatever it is. But the engine is always calculating, always on. And look, these are sort of 95% confident, I would say, because we didn't scale this thing 100% at the start, but close enough. Okay, and sometimes there's these sort of responses to the street like this, so sharp corners. This actually looks like it curves back like this, something like this. All right, so let's do that. Okay, we've got almost our ground floor retail. Is it tiresome and boring? I'll show you the polygon tool. So I hit P, and now instead of drawing a rectangle, I'm drawing a polygon, just because this shape is quite complex. And I'll Y, so I hold down Y for the eyedropper and get something like that. I don't have the beautiful curve there. Certainly an enhancement we need to do is the variable radius tool. Right, and there's one more. I'll use P again because this is quite a shape. There we go. And then eyedropper in that retail. And maybe we don't like the white, the blue rather. Maybe we like so if I select this and then do this and then do this and hit save, it goes white. Does that look better or worse? I think it looks worse. So I want something like fun. There we go. Okay, so there's our retail. And maybe let's make the resi a white model. So select a residential element and then click the usage editor and then it'll open to residential. I'll make that white. I may make it just off white and then I'll make this like a gray. Cool. Ooh, that looks good. Then I hit escape to close that. Okay, so now I guess what we can do is just copy this all up. Hold CLV. E to increase the stack order, increase the number of levels to 3 and change it to residential. Done. So now we've sort of done our base level. And then we should commence with our towers. So I'll turn the ref model down again. Not to 0, but to like 6. And I'm just going to use the polygon tool. And I just want that ref model a bit more on. So I can Y a bit more on than that too. So I can Y that. And then I've just got to get that stack order. All right, polygon, something like this. Often they pull the towers back for the wind. Quite a small little tower there. Okay, and these towers, they sit over the top, more like this. And this one goes like this. There we go. Now we're varying the heights up. Now we can actually start asking some urban questions. Before we do that, let us turn on the 3D buildings. And then let's filter out all the buildings on our site. So the way we do that is we click lens, and we're going to do a filter. We're going to draw a boundary, exclude everything in there. And so I'm just going to draw a boundary like this. Don't need to be too precise, just precise enough. There we go. And I'm just going to hit save there on that layer state so that when I open this project up again, that filter remains. And now if I turn off the ref scheme, you can see that our scheme is situated and there's no overlapping buildings there. And if I turn on the satellite, looks good. Okay, so this looks to me like there's some foreshore change, I guess, or maybe we just mislocated our ref scheme, which actually looks more likely to me. So it's probably more like this, something like that. But for now, I'm not too concerned about it. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about, so one thing we could do is we could turn the terrain on. You can see the pops up, and we are currently clipping the terrain to the site boundary. So we can turn that off, and then it will not clip to the site boundary. We'll get the whole terrain tile. And you can see the strengths and the weaknesses of this. The strengths are that it looks really good. The weaknesses are that it's not that accurate, especially if you get to the CBD. You can see the satellite, which has made the terrain, has confused the buildings with the hills. And so, alas, we have some inaccuracy, some rather large inaccuracy. Which is why most of the time I just do this. And you can see this is basically flat because this is on the foreshore. That's where the contours are. I'll go back to the urban tab. This is sort of 3,000 homes at the moment with the current mix, which I think is more than what they were advertising. So I think I've increased the density more than exists. Probably these Podium, there's no way you could actually fill those up. So they're probably mainly car park. So there's a couple of ways that we could model that. The first way is we could actually explicitly model it. So it's time. I actually want to know, okay, like say it's a 9 meter or an 8 meter deep apartment, and it's sleeving, I don't know the entire thing. Let me just turn this terrain off. It's sleeving the entire building, something like this. And that is 11 meters. So if I come out, oh, this is a good one. If I go 8 minus, it'll do that. So what I can do is I can go to here, to the end I want to, and then I go 8 minus, and then that's 8 meters. I'll just make that parallel. And I can do the same thing again. So I do this, and then I go 8 minus, and it comes out 8. And Giraffe doesn't do self-intersecting polygons. But this, what you're seeing on the screen there, that's actually a sleeved apartment. And then we could actually draw the internal parking lot. And if we go back to the urban, now we've reduced at least some number of apartments, because, so we're currently on 3,482. And if I do this, we're at 3,460, so we've got rid of 60 apartments, which we never had. They were impossible. Something like that. Now, this may be an unnecessary level of detail at this point. The other way of doing it is you just grab this guy, and this residential is coming from the GFA. The GFA, this residential GFA, if you hover over this bar, it shows you what it's referring to, and you can select things. This residential GFA comes from an assumption in our usage editor, and that's this efficiency assumption. And in fact, the apartment number comes from the NSA. So the GFA excludes the vertical circulation and the vertical rises, and the NSA excludes the corridor. So depending on how you calculate the area of your apartments, you will get a different number, but also your efficiency, right? And so the default efficiency is 72. So you could just draw this as a lump of resi, or you can override the efficiency. So if I add an efficiency parameter to a specific geometry and I set that to 0, we'll get less GFA, and it's actually the cell efficiency that we want. So if I take that cell efficiency down to 0, you see that's gone to 3406. And if I set that to 100, then that's up to 3487. So there's a sort of 87 apartments in there. So we could say, I'm not going to draw this geometrically, but I am going to say that only 30% of it is sellable area. And then I'm achieving the same outcome mathematically as reducing the area geometrically by 30%. I'm just multiplying the area by 30%, because all the NSA is the area of the polygon multiplied by the efficiency. Okay, here's another cool little trick. Sorry, I'm just going to sneak that there so you can see that clearly. All right, so this is everything by building. So this is building here. And that hash, that number, is the building ID, which doesn't exist. So I can do this, and I can add a property, and I can add the special property, which is building ID, call it building A, and there you see building A. This would actually be, let's call this building A.2. And now I'll just do this, and I'll do this, and now what I'll do, and you can see that's summing those all up because we've explicitly told Giraffe that we want to code these buildings as the same thing. Let's say this sub precinct is A, so there's going to be A.1, A.2, A.3. I just go like this, and I go like this. And there's building A1, 2, 3. So that's very nice. And we've used this efficiency override here in building A.2. The other way I want to show you how you can get that efficiency in is we'll clone residential, and we'll build something called Podium residential as a new typology or a new usage. And we'll set its cell efficiency to 30% and its efficiency, which is its GFA, its statutory efficiency to 40%. And we'll change its color. So we'll make it slightly darker. And that's also, maybe we'll leave that the same. Let's see how it looks. And I'll save. Okay, so now this is a cell efficiency of 30%, but it's residential. So if I do Podium residential, nothing's going to change on the cell efficiency because this still overrides whatever cell efficiency Podium residential has, which is, as a matter of fact, of 30%. But if I delete that, that is now going to inherit the Podium residential number. And so here, I haven't overridden it. And so we're at 3430. If I set this to Podium residential, we go to 3420. So we lose 10 apartments by reducing that thing's cell efficiency. But the way we reduced it is rather than using the direct override method where I actually added the cell efficiency property manually to the geometry, I just used this usage thing and I created a new usage which contained that efficiency. Now, if I did this and I set this to Podium residential, we're gonna overcook it because we've already manually excluded 70% of the area here by carving it out, and so that wouldn't make sense. And so what I would probably do is actually just fix this up, and maybe for this early stage we're just going to do we're not going to draw the internal, we're just going to have two efficiencies. And we're going to show those efficiencies that this and this are different by just changing their color slightly. All right, and so we may as well do all of that. Now I could have grouped that. We can always group things so that we can just change them quickly, but yeah, why not? So I'll do Podium residential. There we go. Okay, so now all our numbers have changed. We're down to sort of 2,900 apartments, which is still high. It's still much higher than I think what Blackwattle Bay actually is, but it's all assumption driven. So our mix may be wrong. Like, so we got 45% studios, and our one beds may be too small, and our efficiencies may be wrong. But if we save that change and then we do something similar for Podium Resi, maybe in the Podium we're doing more studios and more one beds, and they're 55, 90, and we save that, the numbers change again. So now we're down to 2,100 apartments. All right. Okay, we may as well spend a little bit of time gussying up the public domain, rather. And normally what I would just do is use some plaza and some park. So here, we'll just do some plaza. Now this plaza is way too gray. So let's add let's actually use our usage editor. So let's clone this. Well, let's change this. So I want sort of a sandstone-y warm plaza as per the diagram. So save. Okay, that looks better. And then let's clone it and add feature plaza. Okay, and we're going to make this sort of, I don't know, something very vibrant, more orange. And we'll change its height to 0.15. And that's because we want it to stick over the top. All right, so now we've got plaza, feature plaza. I'm just going to actually add now we're good. I was going to change the line color. Maybe we'll do that in a second. All right, and now it's annoying to draw this rectangle like this and then do that. So I'll just show you a quick flow. And this is like where flow is so good. Say we want this, and I'm going to go flow editor. And these are the legacy flows. And this is flow 2.0. So I may take flow 2.0 and do a grow. And you can see that thing's grown right out. And all I need to do is apply a usage. And so you do that by, I wonder if I can do usage. Apply usage. You grab this feature, and the usage is going to be plaza. And then we're going to pop that in there, and it's plaza. Okay, so that's pretty cool. If I turn that off. And now I wouldn't worry about this thing overlapping or changing or anything like that. So I will just do something like this. And then I'll draw another line. And I'll just hit that Y key. And then for these main ones, I'm just going to draw underneath this feature plaza that we defined earlier. And maybe I'll do some sort of patternation over here. So that's feature plaza. Boom. And that, you can see that takes priority. That because it's taller, just by 500 millimeters, it wins. So I'm obviously rushing here somewhat, but you can see from a visual perspective, it looks nicer. All right, I may delete this guy, chuck another one of these plazas like this, hit my Y, straighten them up, and then do a feature plaza down the guts over here, and then get him aligned where I want him. Okay, so there is some crossover of those lines, which we can sort out. Either like so, like so, or in a variety of other methods. Okay, and this is it. So sorry, I kind of got distracted just making this scheme up, so we didn't really test other options. So let me do the final beauty push, and then let's test some other options. So I just want to put some green roofs up here. And I'm going to say 4 stack. Okay, cool. So all I did there is added the 4 stack parameter to this park, so it stacks. And now I just want to scale these trees down because they're too big. And I want them to be about 0.2. Yeah, cool. Bushes upon the roof. Something like this. And we can sort of, I guess, make a few more, make it like appear more gardeny, more sculpted, more designed. Something like this. And we could, you know, if we had a whole design fee, etc., we could add a bunch more stuff here and make it look even better. But there's our precinct, and this is the reference model. And now what we can do is we can literally just grab all of this. Ooh, I think we've got a duplicate layer button now. Yeah, I'm just going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to turn this one off, and I'm going to call this scenario 2. And let's say this is the low scale scenario. So maybe we don't even have to change the plan at all. We're just going to change the heights. But you can see as I'm going, everything's updating. We're now down to 1,600 dwellings. The shadows are changing. And the scheme is, maybe let's, that group actually does work nicely. So I can just change all the podium heights at once. There's a much lower podium. Maybe it comes up and down and then up. Something like that. These are to the north. If I hit the T button and I turn the solar on and I just run the shadows, so that's in midsummer. So if we come to winter, you can see there's a shadowing there from those buildings. So it's not actually a bad thing to lower them somewhat. So now we've got the ref model in scenario 2. And I guess the final thing to do will be to compare them on a single page. I'm going to do load analytics. I'm just going to load my template. And really what we're going to look at is built form, and we're just going to group by layer. Okay, so there's reference scheme, reference model, and scenario 2. Reference scheme doesn't do anything. So what I'm going to do is ignore it. So I click on the settings. I'm going to hide some layers. I'm going to hide the reference scheme. And I'm not going to show the area type chart. And then I just have my reference model and these 2 analytics. So reference model is the one that we got, and scenario 2 is the one that we made. And you can see here, just in my templates, we're putting out the build form, the building footprint, the FSR, the side area remains the same, fortunately. But we're also doing some very basic modeling. So we're saying the average person per dwelling is 2.3. And so then the total population, which we define as average person per dwelling times total dwelling, is A star B. There's 3,000 people there. I believe we can change the precision to 0 because we don't want 0.16 people. There we go. So in scenario 2, which we've just lowered, there's 1,200 less people living on this site, with all the impacts that's going to have on cafe viability, etc. But the total jobs is the same, and that's because in both schemes the amount of retail is the same. So it's the amount of geometry, because we haven't added anything. So hopefully that was helpful. One solid journey from nothing, maybe a sketch, maybe a design or an input that you've done on paper, and then converting it into what's essentially a digital twin that is situated in context that also has the numbers.